China is turning their games into propaganda. Now, this is not exactly the newest information, but I still wanted to talk about it. And it's also not surprising, because the USA also does this. Why do you think a bunch of COD games have been sponsored by the US military? It's because they're putting military propaganda into the games. If you live in a country with a military, you're always going to have military propaganda to some extent, because how else do they get people to join the military? And unless you want to be forced to join the military, I think we should stick to this system for now. But at the same time, if China is doing something, it's probably more extreme than everybody else. In the case of turning their games into propaganda, it is more extreme than everyone else. So you guys might remember PUBG, and you might still play it too. Shockingly, there's still a lot of people who play this game. I really did not expect to see over 500,000 people on a weekday morning playing this game, because in my mind, PUBG had its heyday and it was kind of over. And then everyone who played PUBG went over to Fortnite or something. But no, apparently a lot of people still play PUBG. And if you're unfamiliar with PUBG, basically it is a battle royale shooter. You drop in, you find gear, you either get killed or win. That is pretty much all there is to it. But China decided that this game was too violent for China. Yeah, they really deemed PUBG too violent. Even though PUBG is really arcadey, for a shooter game, it is probably one of the least violent you can ever get. But China still thought that was too violent. So if you want to play PUBG Mobile in China, you can't anymore. They have shut down the PUBG Mobile servers in favor for their new game called Game for Peace. It is just PUBG, but worse. All of the maps are the same. All the guns are the same. All of the assets are the same. But the gameplay is not the same. Now, instead of it being a battle royale like it used to be, it is now a game where you fight terrorism as a patriotic special ops soldier. Because it is exactly what you should be in life. And they also minimize the violent content to an extreme degree. Like, I don't know how you cut this much violent content out of PUBG because there wasn't much to begin with. Like now, instead of dying if you get shot, your avatar in-game will peacefully drop their items and wave goodbye. And yeah, that's really funny. Like, if my game suddenly started doing this, I'd think it's really funny. But then if I found out it was because the government didn't want me to see violent things, I'd be pretty pissed off. Because that is an extreme level of censorship. There are so many studies that prove that people, when they see virtual people dying, don't think of it as real people. Your brain is automatically separating these two things. So China feeling the need to make sure you can't die in the game is kind of crazy. I used to think that all those images of censored anime with all the white liquid that's supposed to be blood was an exaggeration, but now I actually think those just might be real. I thought they were just made up, but maybe not. Like, I know they have a thing about blood there for some reason, but do they not think that maybe censoring all this will make people, you know, worse? Because I think if somebody killed me in game and I was forced to wave goodbye peacefully to them, that would piss me off a lot. And on that topic of blood color, you can also change the color of the blood in the game to anything but blood color. Because yeah, I guess if you see too much dark red, you'll lose your mind. You'll go insane. You become a violent maniac. Man, I don't like when companies are greedy and make terrible decisions, but at least they're not this, okay? Because there is no company in the world that would make this dumb of a change willingly. Because to be clear, there is a company making this change right now, and it is Tencent, because Tencent owns PUBG Mobile. But I know they're not doing it willingly, because this is a stupid decision that will make them less money. Because who wants to play a battle royale where you shoot people called Game for Peace? But yeah, a company would never do this and ruin the game. A government that thinks this will help and loves power, they'll definitely do this because they did it now. In this new Game for Peace, they also changed the school location to research centers, which honestly, I don't blame them for that one. That one is fair. I don't think that's overreaching very hard at all. I think that's an okay change, because there was just a location in PUBG called school. And since it's a battle royale, you can see why that might be a bad thing. Oh, and of course they have Chinese military ads in the game, because why wouldn't they? You can't do this to the game and not put that in. Like, come on. Now, Chinese players obviously don't like this. Even if the country has a great firewall and has a bunch of propaganda everywhere, I don't think any person who's played a game ever likes when the game is changed this much. I think that's just a universal fact of life. And that's not to say they like the government there, okay? I am sure there's a pretty big chunk of people in China who hate the government, but can't really say it. But talking bad about a game that is basically being controlled by the government, when the government there is authoritarian, is extreme. You know, you really messed up when the people who live in the authoritarian government are saying the game is now bad. Because keep in mind, ever since this game became Game for Peace, it has been CCP propaganda. So talking bad about it might be a problem there, especially since there's certain things you can't even talk about in China, like this image. And I get why Chinese players would hate this game. This game looks bad. Game for Peace does not look like a fun game. I've seen some gameplay. I'll put some up now. But yeah, this game does not look fun, and this whole policy of like no violence in a violent game is crazy to me. It's not even a violent game. Like if you showed someone PUBG, most people would say it's not that violent. Now, if you want to say Mortal Kombat's a violent game, then we're talking, because we're in agreement there. That is just a violent game. Now, if you want to say PUBG is violent compared to like Peggle, Yes, 1,000,000%. But in the realm of shooters that are rated mature for like adults, yeah, PUBG is not that violent. Now, besides the game basically removing violence by making your player peacefully surrender their items to the guy who just killed them, the core functionality of the game also changed. Arguably, it's not even a battle royale anymore, because instead of only one player winning at the end, if you are in the last 5, you can just quit. And the reason that's allowed now is because, and I'm not making this up, to reduce the sense of antagonism and to avoid increased risk of heart failure during the final circles. What do you mean? You know this is just a made-up reason, because who has data on heart failure that happened while you played PUBG Mobile? If that's a thing and I am mistaken, please correct me. I just think that would be insane if we had the exact numbers of the people who died of heart disease from PUBG Mobile and it was significant enough to make it a factor. Like, that's obviously not a real reason. I don't know what the real reason is besides like actually lowering antagonism, but in my opinion that also makes it worse because those 5 people are gonna be so toxic. But if 5 people win at the end of the game, it's not really a battle royale anymore. Like, what is the point? Now, if this was like 1,000 players and like 5 players won at the end, I think that's fair. But 100 players and 5 players win? That sounds like you're stealing my win. And the reason PUBG Mobile went through this extreme change was because around this time, China introduced a positive vibes policy, where basically things had to exude positive energy. Which, yeah, if that sounds dystopian as hell, it's because it is. I don't think I want the government enforcing that I have a good time or have positive vibes, because honestly, that just ruins the vibes. If I'm playing a video game, the last thing I want is the government sitting behind my back being like, hey, make sure you don't curse that person out. All it makes you want to do is talk trash. That's all it does. And I think most people who talk trash or have the inclination to talk trash are also like that. And obviously this didn't ruin Tencent or anything. They're still a huge company, unfortunately. And Game for Peace, or PUBG Mobile, also still seems to have players, but that's probably just because in China, there isn't much competition. Because I guarantee you, if a game came out that was PUBG Mobile without being censored, it would be more popular. Because who wants to play a game where you wave the guy who just killed you goodbye? Depending on my mood, that's either funny or the gravest insult to ever exist. And this whole thing with PUBG is a huge reason as to why I don't like when companies pander to China super hard. Like, I don't care that they're making the movie or the game or whatever it is more accessible to foreign audiences. I don't care about that. I care because other countries have horrible censorship policies that always make it into the final product here, because it is way more work to make 2 separate products for different markets than one that meets all the criteria. So whenever any country ever has extreme censorship policy and they play some role in the global stage, the censorship usually is in our version of the product too. Sometimes it's cut out and swapped with stuff, and other times it's just the movie or the product, it's just censored. And there's nothing you can do because it was just made that way. And if it wasn't obvious, I don't think China should have the ability to do this at all, but the government there sucks. But I can't change it. They are a world government. I am a YouTuber. And China is also really extreme with it. Like, the whole no blood at all thing is so bizarre. Like, I'm sure it made more sense when the policy was first introduced, but in this day and age, it makes no sense. We know for a fact it does not make people violent to see fake blood, and pretty much every other country doesn't really seem to care. So I don't know why they care so much. But yeah, what do you guys think about this? Let me know in the comments down below. Like, subscribe, new follow me through spatnz1, click down, check out more of my content, and have a good one.